Today, as we continue our exploration of the Sixth Commandment, we've brought a couple of guests into our video, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. And we're going to use these ever so popular child's toys to illustrate for us some of the confusion that our society has about gender identity. And on this note, we want to turn again to God's Word. We're going to look at Romans chapter 1, verses 24 and 26 to 27. To hear what God says about human sexuality, gender identity, and the abuse of such things. It says, "Therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves." In verse 26, "For this reason God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged natural relations with those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women, and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men, and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error." This is the word of the Lord. And so this passage very clearly talks about homosexuality as well, and which is not appropriate according to God and His design. But in the world that we live in today, not only is homosexuality embraced, it is lauded and it is lifted up by many as the way to be. And to the point that now that we have medical technology that allows us to manipulate our bodies, that men are trying to live as women and women are trying to live as men. But at what point does a man become a woman? Or at what point does a woman become a man? And is this even possible? Well, we're going to turn to the potato heads to figure out if this is impossible. And so we have Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head and the bucket of parts. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take the parts from one to the other until we can figure out if maybe one of them has changed. So let's start with the hair. That is probably the biggest and easiest thing to change. Now all of a sudden, Mr. Potato Head is looking a lot more like Mrs. Potato Head. But Mr. Potato Head still has his mustache. So what if we remove the mustache from Mr. Potato Head and put it on Mrs. Potato Head? Is the change complete? Do we have a Mrs. Potato Head and a Mr. Potato Head? Well, the adornment, the eyes still look feminine, so let's just change those. Well, let's see here. What do we have here? What do you think now? Have we completed the change? It looks pretty convincing to me. All we got to do is change some accessories here. Let's take the purse away. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. But we're going to put the purse over here. Oh, wait. Earrings. Are guys allowed to wear earrings or not? You know, well, I guess so. So we probably don't need to change that. Have we changed? Have we made Mr. Potato Head Mrs. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head Mr. Potato Head simply by changing some parts? I don't think so. Because the potato hasn't changed. And when it comes to the human body, our gender identity is not assigned by our own personal preference or what we want it to be. It is actually written into your genetic sequence. It is a part of the makeup of your body at the very most basic levels. Boys have a Y chromosome where girls have an X chromosome. And that is what determines our gender. Not our desires, not our wants, not medical technology or switching parts around. Yes, medicine may make that possible, medical technology may make that possible, but we don't change what's down inside. We don't change the potato, even if we change what it looks like. It is the same. And so if we can't change the gender of a plastic play toy simply by rearranging the parts, we certainly are not going to be able to change the human body. We could make one look like the other one, but deep down inside, the genetic sequence has already been fixed. It has been set. And even if we develop the technology to change the genetic structure of human beings to where we could actually swap out chromosomes and replace them and do so for the entire body. I would say that what God did the moment that person was conceived, that cannot be changed, and that will remain. Now, there may be human beings who are tempted to feel like they are more feminine or more masculine, and that is just a part of the confusion that's been caused by sin. And we can't, as Christians, if we stick true to the Word and stick true to what God has said in the Bible, we can't just be okay with switching parts and calling it what we want to call it. Because God has made us who we are. He has created us. He has created us male and female, even from the very beginning. And no amount of medical technology is ever going to be able to fix that or change that or undo what God has done in conception. And so we want to be very careful about this, and we simply want to acknowledge what God has done in creation and not want to do anything or think that we could change ourselves in a way that is going to somehow fundamentally change what God has done in conception and in creation.